Thank you all for coming tonight. I don't think this will be a really long meeting. Did everybody get a copy of the agenda and minutes?
Did I get a distribution list, please? Yes, I'm being paid in that. It's like I went to the wrong location again.
And we just started. We'll get you on. No worries. So everybody's here, Andrea? Everybody else here?
About introductions of our new member.
Oh, yeah. And for everybody that is unaware, Al Raymond is here for the first time this evening. Welcome, Al. Welcome, Al. And anybody here, I'm sure, is willing to answer any questions you have. So we have the minutes of the February 19th meeting. Did anybody have any questions on that?
Have some discussion. I just want to kind of reiterate how important I think it is that the information that we request gets to the board in that timely manner. Like in the discussion, it says, you know, that we would have a list of action items no later than Friday, the 31st. And it also mentions that the architect would be in attendance, and I just think it's important that the rest of the board, because there are 4 other Board of Ed members, that they receive the information when it does its job.
Sure, thank you. We'll make note. So approval of these minutes are in order.
I move to approve the February 19th, 2025 minutes.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And we move on to Amy, the Amy O'Toole Show. I guess you're going to talk to us about funding?
Yes, I reached out to our financial advisor who helps us with our bonding and asked them, what would it be our capacity? And with a 10% cap, it's 43,500,000
I don't understand what you mean by 10% cap.
of not having more than 10% in our debt service of the total budget.
Okay,
So that number is 43,500,000. So if I back into it using our standard reimbursement rate for renovate to new, right sizing the buildings, it's 63.21%. So that gives us a total project cost of across all the schools of $118 million.
all three, the
All,
middle
whatever you
school, the high
decide.
school, and the Broadbrook School.
Total, all the projects together have to equal no more than $118 million.
If we get the 63% reimbursement.
Yes. If we chose to leave the high school as it is, that reimbursement rate drops down to 22.98, which then makes our total project availability $56 million across all 3 schools.
Yikes.
So that's the difference of right sizing or not right sizing. I know it was brought up, it was discussed that our school's twice as big as it should be. When I went way back on February 8th of 24 to the presentation. So that makes a big difference. I know people are saying, oh, we'll just leave it the same size. Well, if you do, now you have $56 million to spend across all 3 schools. And that's still us paying $43 million as taxpayers.
And what does that do to the tax rate?
The tax rate goes up 2.5 mils, which is 10%. For just borrowing $43 million and getting the rest from the state. New construction, the reimbursement rate is less, it's 53.21%. So that drops the total project cost to $92 million.
Well, give me those numbers again, please.
53.21 for new construction. And that gives us 92 million, almost 93 million, because it's 92,988. And that would still be right-sized. Because all new construction has to be right-sized.
Right.
There's no space waiver.
But we've already determined that we're gonna renovate to new for the Broadbrook School, so that would be at the 63.21%.
Yeah, for 3/4 of it or 2/3 of it. The modulars cannot be renovated at all because they're not 20 years old. So that portion of the school cannot be touched at all and get any kind of improvement.
So if there was to be some renovations to that, it would be totally at the town's expense.
Yep.
So all three of those scenarios, and I'm going to give you the reimbursement rates, the 63, the 22, and the 53. All of those are assuming a $43 million local contribution.
Yes, the project, right, we're paying
No matter what.
500,000 for any of those scenarios. It just, how much we can buy depends on how much we're getting back.
Right,
So the reimbursement rate really matters.
yeah.
That 22% just isn't feasible. Get half the project for the same money, same 10% tax increase, same 2.5 mils.
Do you have anything on that in writing that we would be able to make sure that we have something for the minutes that would?
Well, the percentages came off your spreadsheet from CGS in February of 2024. That's where all the reimbursements rates are.
Yeah,
I
but we
just
didn't
took their
have the,
presentation.
but we didn't have the 43.5 mil, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
something. that was-
So
That's really the only
the
number.
43.5 million is tied to our debt service
Right.
being not more than 10% of our total operating budget. So as our operating budget goes up, so too does that number, but it's not going up by a lot any year.
Yeah,
So we can only have that $4.3 million or so in debt service. Currently, we have, that's actually encumbered like 390,000
500?
that we have,
500?
that is actually spent at the end of the year. So we can add $3.8 million more or $4 million more of new debt to our debt service. That number is what you need to figure out what your local payments are going to be. And then once you know what your local payments are going to be, you need to divide that against the portion of the total project cost that's going to be borne locally. So if there, I picked the wrong one. Let's say that with the 53.2 number, you would take that $43 million and you would divide that by 0.4679, 46.79% that's borne locally. That number has to be within what we're able to borrow. And that borrowing number is 43.5 million. Correct?
so again, I'm gonna ask.
I don't really have anything in writing. I just.
No, I mean-
They gave us.
Yeah, I get it, but can you provide us with something so that we have a record so that going forward, this group,
You want her to generate something?
yeah?
Put together like a matrix or something?
Just a one page with the statements that you said. It does not need to be anything fancy, no graphs, no charts, no anything like that. Just something with those numbers so that going forward, we're not looking in minutes for, okay, when did she say that and what was it, Would you mind? Is that all right?
Thank you.
Oh, great, thank you. Would that be helpful to you all?
Quick question. So we said, did we go out for the 23%? We said 2.5 mils.
We're always borrowing the same $43 million. So
Yeah.
the price is always the same. It's always
All right, so
4%,
we're
always
just
2.5.
dropping.
You just, right, your project's dropping from 118
Yep.
to 93 to 56.
Yeah. So the
Thank you.
town share is gonna be the same all the time.
Yep, the debt
Fine
service
amount.
will be 20 years at $4 million.
Can we do 30 years?
We cannot, according to the policy. It caps it at 20, and I'm guessing that's because that's when you need new roofs, maybe that's when you need
Yeah.
HVAC.
That makes sense.
But the policy is 20 years. And I can see the logic behind it,
Yeah, yeah, me too.
because things will need to be fixed in 20 years.
We'll be asking for a new roof. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Amy, other than Jeff's?
I guess that's, so if we have the middle school, high school campus and we right size it, then it's the 43 million and that's where we get the 118 million capacity, correct?
That's right size in all schools,
Right.
that reimbursement rate of 63%.
Right.
Yep,
So I think it's important to let CSG kind of color in fill in the color on the square footage and all that. This is really just illustrative for what the dollar impact is
Yes.
based on if we were to go full vote on the credit card. The remaining, how you do what, that's a conversation that CSG needs to advise us on, that really is not Amy's thing.
Right.
But in terms of how much can we put on the credit card, that's 100% Amy's thing.
Okay, so like, I guess then my question is, if we want something different, if we want to go for more square footage than completely absolute right sized, we would have to get somebody involved at legislative level. Correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What I was hoping that you all would glean from this is just to show what the significance of the reimbursement rate is relative to the available total size of the project.
Yeah.
Because our local piece, it's not fixed, but it's capped. It cannot go more than
Yeah.
a total of 43.5 million, which is roughly $4.5 million of debt service. We can't exceed that. So that I thought it was important to ask Amy to explain how you reverse engineer into that number. So you now know, like, if you wanted to build 3 new schools, mathematically, that is not possible. Not because we don't want to, but because the math does not work.
Yep.
If you wanted to forego any of the right sizing space and just take the 22% reimbursement rate, you could do that, but you could really only do that in 1 school. And your total local contribution remains the same. This is just, the takeaway is that the sliding scale really is dependent on the reimbursement rate, and the reimbursement rate is really going to be dependent on what the ed specs are going to be and what the strategy is going to be in terms of accomplishing the overall goal. Fair?
I mean, just to add, I think we are optimistic we will get space waivers. I think where we are, the challenge is how much of a space waiver or to what limit, and we may not get like what we're looking for, what we feel we need. So to like what extent?
So let's introduce kind of another speed bump into this whole process. So we're going to try and get a space waiver for whatever the ultimate design is. But the state, and if Sam's on, she can correct me if I get this wrong.
She is on. Hi, Sam.
So we need to have,
Hi, guys.
my understanding is, a referendum scheduled by June 30th with a total project price in it. And now you all know what the total available project price is, assuming that our assumptions at that point are correct. If we're wrong, if we put in for a 10% space waiver and we don't get it, then we're back to square one. Sam, did I get that correct, or is that completely inaccurate?
I just wanted to make a distinction between space waivers and special legislation. So a space waiver is something that the Office of Grants Administration would provide to districts, saying that they're waiving the space requirement and that you can design a school to, whatever square footage that you're requesting. Those are becoming harder to get from OGA, and a lot of districts aren't getting them. So the alternative route is special legislation, meaning you work with your local legislators to get something actually written into the next legislative session saying that the projects don't have to meet the Connecticut space requirements. So it's a little bit different. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Have we asked Jamie to start doing that?
Well, yeah, but with what?
She's aware, but we need specifics.
Yeah, we don't have conceptual.
We don't
Also,
even know how much space we're asking to waive.
Sam, it was
She's
asked
got a dummy bill, but
whether our
Also-
legislator was,
Just one other thing to note, you don't need to have a referendum by June 30th. The referendum just needs to be scheduled prior to the submission of the grant application.
oh, that's
The
better.
referendum doesn't need to be by June 30th. The grant applications are due by June 30th, but the referendum can be scheduled for another time.
But we still need the total project cost before scheduling the referendum.
Correct.
Yeah.
and we need that for the application anyway.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thoughts, concerns? What?
Jason, can you, just because I just want to have an understanding, you had mentioned that our budget, our town budget is reflective of the borrowing capacity
Yep.
because of where we are. How much does, not that I'm suggesting this, but how much would like the budget have to increase for an additional $1 million? Like just for reference, like, so,
It's 10 to 1 generally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
100,000 gets you $1 million.
okay.
So the budget has been going up like 2%.
It's been going up more than that, 3.8 and change. It's been a good couple of years.
So let's
Um,
have a good year and get a bigger budget.
Well, so it's not just a matter of putting more money into debt service. The overall budget needs to increase by an additional $1 million
Right.
in order to add that $100,000 of debt capacity, which gets you an extra $1 million of outstanding debt. However, there is also a complication of the municipal spending cap. And I'm not talking about the charter provision. There's a state one as well, that we have recently done a little bit more research on. And that says that municipalities can't increase their municipal spending by more than 2.5% or CPI, whichever is greater, without taking a 50 cent on the dollar reduction in state aid. It is definitely a big enough stick to get your attention.
Yeah.
So that is a complication. When you have years like last year, when CPI is 6.8,
We're all.
really not a big deal. But as inflation comes back down, that will additionally preclude us from crossing that threshold. This is not simple.
No, it definitely isn't. That's why I was just like, okay, wait a minute, how
It's
does
like
that?
that, and then that, and then you have to
Like,
take that away.
But so to take from this, our local borrowing capacity is 40, well, not local borrowing, but the amount that we can charge is 43,500,000.
Correct.
And
Now
we
you can back
renovated-
into that from
Right.
now on, but that's an important, I wanted to make sure you
Yeah.
guys were hearing from Amy, who works with our bond advisors to figure out, like, what can we do?
Yep, no, I appreciate that. And I think that that's good. Because then at least like Sam and they kind of know where.
Yeah.
Numbers need to go in order for us to get this into. a movie.
Any other questions of Amy? Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't know if that was good news, but
Well, it's the next piece of the puzzle. I mean, the fifth
We
grade
have to have it.
question was tackled last week. This is the next elephant in the room. The next thing after that, from my point of view, is going to be the educational specs and the space availability. I mean, so.
Yeah.
We're making progress.
Yeah.
And we're ticking off those things that need to be answered before you can get to a question.
before
I mean-
the application and, yeah.
This seemed like the appropriate time to raise this because you have to raise it. Charting it out, this seems like the right next thing to talk
Yeah.
about.
Good news or bad, we needed to know.
It's just news.
Yeah.
It's a variable
Yeah.
and it is what it is.
Yeah, good information to have for sure. Okay, on to updates. Samantha, do you have any updates for us?
I have a few, I guess. So
How are you feeling, first of all? Are you feeling better?
a lot better, thank you. A
Great.
lot better. I apologize. My plan was to be there last week, but it was not happening.
Oh, no.
Anyways, so a few updates. The survey obviously was completed last week. I brought the hard copies of the responses that were mailed into Ira yesterday. He has a report from the survey company, but he needs to review it prior to sending it to us. So I'm hoping to have that for you guys by the end of this week. The other thing is, now that we know where fifth grade is going, GWWO has a little bit better of a direction as to where they need to go when it comes to the design or the conceptual design. So I met with them on Monday to kind of go over where they're at with the design, and they've taken the existing layout of the building and now they're using the draft of the ed specs to kind of maneuver things in there and figure out where everything's going to fit. So we're moving in the right direction, and we'll keep pushing forward.
Samantha,
Yes.
I just had a question. So I know the survey, the window closed. We have had like, I think 2 came in today of the paper surveys. I imagine, but I just want confirmation, like we're just going to close it out because it's, like I looked, they were postmarked, 2 days ago, March 3rd.
Yeah.
So at this point, what do you want me to do with those, I guess?
You could just hold on to them for now, I think.
Okay.
Let me see what we should do with them, but you could just hold on to them for now.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam, how certain are you that Ira will have that information, sort of synthesized by the end of the week?
That's what he told me as of today. He said that, he has a draft of the report. He just wants to review it prior to it getting sent out. So, I'm fairly certain, but I'm pushing him to get it done this week.
Okay, Samantha, can you, well, she'll send me a sheet too.
If I get it in my
Okay.
office, we can send it
Okay.
to this entire
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And actually the Board of Ed as
Yeah,
well.
that's what I.
Yeah, I'll send it to both.
Yeah. So my question is, Sam, you said that GWWO has a better direction now and is using the draft ed spec. So what do we see? Irene, could you mute? Thank you. What do you think timing is for finalizing the ed specs? Because that is something that Board of Ed that's on our tasks.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to have a better answer on that tomorrow, because what I think is going to be super helpful and what my plan is moving forward is to utilize GWWO's conceptual design or beginnings of a conceptual design to kind of guide the remainder of the questions that, or the open items, I guess you want to call it, or to finalize the draft rather, let's put it that way, of the ed specs. Just because I think showing everybody what it's actually going to look like when everything's laid out will be helpful in some decision making, because we are still, you know, over square footage wise with the way the current ed specs are drafted. So there is still a little bit of room for things to be shifted. And I think having some sort of a plan for you guys to look at would be more beneficial to you guys than just looking at a table or space matrix. So like I said, I'm meeting with them tomorrow, so I'm hoping to have a more concrete answer as to when we can kind of get those finalized. I'm hoping by the end of the month we can get the ed specs done, but we'll see what happens when I meet with them tomorrow.
Question,
Yep,
just like when the architect and everybody's going.
you'll have to
through-
speak up louder, I think.
When the architect and GWWO, when they're making the final drafts, I mean, are they aware of kind of the Board of Ed's hard line on, we're not really
Absolutely.
interested in seeing something that
Oh.
doesn't have 2 entrances, like that's not gonna
It's
be,
been stressed a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so that's what they're trying to figure out, because when it's easy to do those things when you're, you know, doing construction from the ground up and you're building a new school, but to kind of retrofit into an existing
Yeah.
school, it takes a little bit of thinking and maneuvering. So they are working on that. And they have copies of the ed specs, and they're aware of wanting to maintain a clear delineation between middle school and high school. So they are working on that. I just don't know what that looks like at this point in time.
Yeah. Can I ask, considering the layout of the current high school building with the various courtyards, is it a possibility to, if we need the space, to take over a courtyard and then like lose part of a wing somewhere else and renovate to new?
You mean like making the courtyard the inside of the building?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's always an option. I've never seen that done, but I mean, if we need to get creative, we can get creative.
Okay,
But our issue is more that we have too much space.
right, but I'm just thinking if
If
you
it's
wanted to
not
put
fitting right, yeah,
something right in the middle, like your
yeah.
Trying to make a
cafeteria.
Clover with a hole in it. Somehow I need to make a box here. Is that how we're gonna fill it in?
That is an interesting metaphor.
What a good one. Okay, so I'm getting from you, Sam, that your targets are, we'll get the survey results by the end of the week, if possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the final ed specs by the end of the month, as close as possible to that.
Yep, that's what my plan is.
So we must have another meeting coming up for the, architects and CSG and those that need to be involved in that soon, right?
Yeah, let me see, like I said, let me talk to them tomorrow and let me get some dates and I'll get back to you guys. I just don't want to put some dates out there without talking to them because it is their bulk of the work that they're working on right now.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, yes.
I was just wondering, considering that the ed specs, it's to my inexperienced opinion, it seems to be taking a long time to get the ed specs, and I worry about what is hanging on us getting them? What happens after that we need to do, and do we have enough time to do it if we don't?
So Sam, you have much more experience in getting a calendar together for that kind of stuff. Can you help answer that question?
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So the question was like, what do you need to do for the ed specs? I'm just not
No.
understanding.
The question is, what are the next steps once we get
Finalized?
once we get the ed specs finalized? What is hanging in the wings, waiting for those to get finalized, and do we have enough time to perform those things?
Like, okay, I see what you're saying. No, so the reason why the ed specs or one of the reasons was because we were unsure where fifth grade was going. So we had drafts of the ed specs based on fifth grade being at the middle school, high school. Now that we know that the fifth grade is going to stay at the middle school, high school, we can further refine the ed specs and make it and look at the sizes of spaces and the number of spaces and what spaces can be shared between the middle school and high school. So once we kind of narrow that stuff down, we can finalize the ed specs, and then all the Board of Ed has to do is approve them in a meeting. Beyond that, there's nothing, not that that's a small feat, but there's nothing else that the Board of Ed will need to do once they approve the ed specs.
Or we have to understand them first and then
Right.
approve them.
Correct.
Yeah, and you guys
Yeah.
have the most up-to-date drafts
Okay,
that I sent to the Board of Ed last week.
But, yeah,
So
but in
you guys have
looking-
the updated draft, so I mean, until we get a revised draft, you guys have the most up-to-date versions.
it was my understanding that the sizes of the gyms that were put into the ed specs were they don't seem to be quite big enough for a high school gym if we're going to be having games between various high schools.
So I actually was looking at the gyms with the architect the other day. And right now, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but the current high school gym is larger than what the architect and what our educational specialist usually sees for high school gyms. And right now there's 2 gyms in the ed spec. There's a middle school gym that I
So
believe
where
is
do people
around.
normally sit and watch basketball games if our high school gym is too big?
Well,
We
that's.
stand-
Well, hang on, hang
That's
on,
the-
let me
Yeah.
just finish my
We're
thought.
not
So,
gonna.
yeah, so let me just finish my thought. So the idea was instead of, right now they have a middle school and a high school gym in the ed specs, right?
Right.
So we're trying to see if maybe we don't need to have a middle school gym and we can maintain the current size of the gym and only utilize one gymnasium in the middle school, high school. We're
That
just
would
trying to.
That would be crossing, then you would have middle school kids crossing into the high school. that's going against what we want. We want like very restricted shared space and a high school on one side and a middle school on the other side.
So I understand that, but we're trying to figure out areas where we can create more shared space to reduce square footage. So I'm not saying that it's definite. It was just an idea because your current gym, the size of your current gym is basically the total size of what both gyms would need to be for the middle school and the
How
high
do you,
school.
I have to beg to differ because I've been in that basketball. How do you play a basketball game if you don't have enough space to play a basketball game? If it's twice the size it needs to be, are you including the square footage up to the ceiling?
I think that discussion is once we have the ed specs to see where we're headed. They understand our concern about the split.
Yeah.
So let's see what they come up with. They may be looking at moving classrooms to someplace else, filling in the center of the square. We don't know what they're gonna come up with until, so, let's get some idea of what the ed specs are gonna look like.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, Fran, I share your concerns and I'm
Yeah.
receiving this information first time
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
It's again, it's not definite. I'm just saying that's an idea that we're talking about. It's not set in stone at all. We're just looking at ways to create more shared space. That's all. It's not a definite idea. It was just an example of the type of conversation and the thought process that the architect's having based on the ed specs. That's all. It's not definite. We're not trying to combine things where you guys don't want things combined. It's an ever-changing process. So there's going to be multiple iterations of all this stuff. So like I said, it was an example. We don't need to get into the weeds on it. And that's stuff that we're going to hash out once we get the ed specs finalized and as GWWO finalizes their conceptual design.
But then we will have a chance to get in the weeds. That
better.
will be our,
It's our
No.
school.
right, and
Yeah.
once we get some kind of semblance of what the ed specs look like beyond, the numbers of square feet per classroom, then it's up to us to say, that doesn't work, or why do we have 5 third grades when now we have 3, or whatever the questions are. That's the next step.
So, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Heather had a question
Oh, sure.
first.
Samantha, I have a question, just so I can understand this. When you guys go for space, not necessarily even space waivers, just figuring out the area footage for the school, does it take into consideration that we are physically putting 2 separate schools there in that one place? Do they look at it like, I understand that the space is a concern, but does it take into account that 2 schools will be there?
They look at the enrollment. They look at the enrollment and the grade levels and the grade level distribution. It's not necessarily 2 schools in one, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It just,
Yeah.
Disappointing.
That's what,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if I could interject a little bit, maybe shed some light. Okay, we've got it narrowed down. The architect's working on trying to come up with a concept of us using the school we have. So they're telling us they're gonna have that by the end of the month.
Mhm.
So that's when we probably need to get together, once they give us a concept, bring them in the room. And then we can hammer them, because then we'll be able to see what they're thinking.
Okay.
Because Sam's great at what she does, but she's not an architect.
Right.
I'm not an architect. I like your idea about getting rid of some of the wasted middle space and everything this way. If we have to lose D wing at the very end, the last classroom, nobody goes there anyways, it's too far away. And then, and to Jeff's point, we'd have to heat it. Now we need new pipes, so cost factor, like, we might be able to do that. So I think that would probably be the best thing. If we give them 2 weeks from now, is pretty close to the end of the month, hopefully they can make our
Yeah.
meeting in 2 weeks, if it's enough time.
Well, 2 weeks from now is the budget public hearing? Is it a public hearing?
It is.
Sheesh, pass on the budget, you guys got 43 million.
So we may put it off for another week.
So that
That
will
gives
give them
them
an
the
extra,
time.
a little extra time.
Yeah.
You got a question.
Sarah and And then Courtney.
I mean, I just think it's important, I mean, Brand's point about what we want, because my concern is if they come back with the conceptual plan and everything is shared and I think it's important that we reiterate that, because then it's just gonna delay more time to have to redo everything again. So I just think I know we're not there yet, but I think it should definitely be stressed, like you've all said.
And I'll make you that promise that I will probably be on a phone call with GWWO and emphasize that again to them.
And
That we
we
don't bring
have,
this a conceptual unless it has, these are the things we're looking for.
Right.
And, you
The
know,
list when you buy a house, like these are
Right.
the
the must-have.
must-haves.
Yeah. And we have been saying that.
and they know that, and, you know,
They've
we'll,
acknowledged that, yeah.
2 gyms,
Yeah.
So Courtney, you had a question?
I just, my concern is, if the ed specs are finalized at the end of March and we're handed something where us as a board, we already know this is, no, we're not doing
Right.
this. Are we waiting now because takes quite a bit of time to get finalized? Now are we waiting till April 30th for the next one?
How
And
long,
then how do we,
so your question is, how long would it be to redesign,
The-
including our,
well,
whatever our,
so they'll have it all in CAD by then on the computer. And then in
I'm
order
just
to be
saying, if
able
it's
to.
something that we, they present us with these final,
Right.
March 28th, we get the finals. And for whatever reason, there is only one cafeteria on their finalized ed specs. How long is it gonna take to get the new ones?
They're fully aware of our timeline also. The architect. So they're, and with the RFP that we gave them, they're fully aware of our timeline. So they'll have to work day and night to get it to us.
Fran, you had a question as well?
My question, I sort of piggybacked on what Joe was saying. I just, the wants, needs, must-haves. If we, just when you're building your conceptual design, we just finished talking to the people here, telling them that
Sure.
your children will be safe and there will be, these are the shared spaces that your kids will not be in the closet with a 12th grader.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's my daughter going up there too.
I mean, just to be clear too, I mean, I know myself, Jason and Denise have, participated in a number of meetings about ed specs. Joe, I mean, everything that, the last draft we saw had 2 gyms, they had 2
Yeah.
cafeterias. So just to be clear, we're getting the information in real time
Right.
too as well. And certainly we have not been part of any of those conversations.
And we say it every time,
Yeah.
every time. Jeff, you had a question?
Yeah,
Or
the
comment?
hard lines that were drawn, was that through board?
Say that again?
Was the hard lines we were talking about?
Kind
like?
of just the word I'm using.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
The
Was that through the Board of
community-
Education?
Yes,
Yes,
that's the
I
Board of
mean, we
You
Education.
guys voted on something, or you guys had something?
Yes, we did.
I just didn't see it, so.
It was just,
The last meeting,
Yeah.
we had a motion that said the 5th grade would be going with the 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Yeah.
And it was amended to add specifically that it had to be separate. So it's,
Okay.
I don't
so just
remember the
separate.
exact wording,
Was
but
there multiple caps, multiple gyms?
no, we didn't get that specific.
So
We
just,
can't.
you said we wanted separate, almost like they're 2 separate.
Yeah.
schools.
To your question though, the biggest vote the board does have to do is they do have to, vote and approve on that specs is my understanding from CSG. So they would have to vote on what you're saying, it's
Yeah.
just at a different time. That finalized product hasn't been brought forward to them for their review to vote.
And you can see we're all the Board of Ed members here are adamant that that's the way it has to go.
I do think that square footage is going to become a problem pretty quickly.
Yeah. I agree.
I was concerned.
Wayne, I know you had a question. We have public participation, so when it's that, okay?
Train of thought.
I'm with you there. Any other updates, Samantha?
Nope, that's all I have for right now.
Does anybody have any other questions for Sam? Thank you, Samantha.
Yep, no problem.
Feel better.
Thanks.
Okay, survey results, we don't have that yet.
Correct. She answered that,
Yeah.
said, we'll have them by the end of,
This
this
week.
week, it sounds like.
So they'll be shared with the Board of Ed and they'll be shared with, this committee as well. Okay. Is there any miscellaneous? No?
I mean, the only thing maybe suggesting is, like, as far as like if we're, adding a date or as far as meeting.
Oh, yeah, so the next meeting is the night of a public hearing, if we won't follow the every 2 week schedule, so is the committee comfortable with going to the next week? We might have more information from GWWO as well by then. So that would be the, what is it,
26.
26th? When I looked, I didn't see any conflict, does anybody?
We have our regular board of ed meeting, 26.
We've had these before the Board of Ed meetings before, right? Yeah, so we can do that. So the 26th would be our next meeting?
You want, I think this, this committee's met both at 5:30 and 6. Is it,
Which do you all prefer? 5:30 or 6?
I was there for 5:30 today, so 6 o'clock is easier for me, but I can make 5:30 work if I need to.
Are you okay? Like, can we do it over there? And then that way we can accommodate Sarah and then at least the board will be where we need to be. If we're running close to our meeting time.
We do. It's 26th of March. Yeah. For Bill. We have a Board of Ed meeting, 7.
So, okay. Your ad hoc meeting, give as much time as you can, because if you guys get that information.
That's gonna be a heavy meeting. That's my concern.
Okay, so just saying,
We might have a lot to,
Do we want to do a different day?
because they're gonna present it. So it'll be a big PowerPoint, either their Zoom or they'll be in person, but they'll have a big. I probably shouldn't say Dr. Cody show, but they'll,
you can't do the, Thursday, that's,
And there's no possibility that that would be ready for the 19th.
no, absolutely not.
yeah, makes sense.
I would give them as much time as possible.
It's not a lot.
I can't do
Not a lot.
it.
But
Yeah, I was already on.
have changed.
The PD and,
So,
which, I mean, I
Do
think
Tuesday.
that's our normal meeting is the second too.
what's Thursday?
There's, I mean, we could.
Thursday, the 27th?
So Thursday, the 27th is the date that, the East Windsor PD is playing our.
Oh,
Charity
well,
game.
you gotta be there.
Tuesday, 25th.
I can't make it.
Do you just want to go the next?
The following week, the first week in April.
If we do that, at least that information will be ready, and then we as a board will be voting on Wednesday.
I would anticipate, and maybe I'm wrong, Joe, I'm anticipating, but maybe I'm wrong. It will take more than one meeting for the Board of Ed
Absolutely.
to decide on the
Yeah.
ed specs. Is that what you were saying that
Well,
we keep
yeah, I
voting
mean,
on?
let's, like, I mean, because we're gonna have to review them on the 9th, and then we're not
You mean
meeting
the-
again in, we, the Board of Ed. We would meet on the 9th, then we'll meet again on the 23rd. Hopefully on the 23rd, we'll make some kind of a decision, but then we're cutting it close to Jason's time frame.
I mean, the only thing I would say as the Board of Ed, you can always schedule a special meeting.
Yeah, just for that. I mean, that's a pretty important
Okay.
thing to be able to work a little bit flexible.
Okay.
So, is Wednesday the, April 2nd?
That's our, we created the calendar, that was a regular scheduled meeting of this committee.
So we're just skipping a meeting,
Yeah.
Right.
but we should surely have all the information then. So is
Will we be able
everybody
Get it
comfortable with that?
beforehand and get it digest before the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I'm a kind of squeaky wheel about it. I try really hard.
What time is that? That's at 6 o'clock?
I mean, I'm hearing 6 o'clock works best. for
Yeah,
me.
that works better for you, Sarah, right? Okay, so 6 o'clock. on April 2nd. Will be our next meeting. Al, do you have any, under miscellaneous, any comments about this crazy group?
Happy to be here and help out where I can.
Great, thank you. We're on to public participation. Wayne, do you remember? He told me he wouldn't remember.
Help me understand this. I don't know if I'm hearing everything correct. $10,000 is allocated to start this process, right?
No,
No.
How much?
500,000, give or take,
How much?
500,000.
No, for the proposal and the concepts and stuff.
Yeah,
$500,000. Ooh,
That's not to say it's all being spent, but that's how much we have available for all the consultation work.
okay. So now you're in a concept stage and they're gonna make you pretty drawings and you're gonna be changing. So you're gonna be drawing on that money. You're gonna be working it down because this stuff's expensive.
yes.
I have made conceptual drawings for many years. And you can do it very plain. I don't understand why they're not putting something in front of you that you can get an idea of what's going on, because they're gonna make a drawing and you're gonna get it back and say, oh, this is a bit, like this young lady said, the gym isn't right. So now they're gonna take it back and they're gonna make it real pretty again. Why don't you think about maybe suggestion, asking them just to give you some rough concepts of what they're thinking of. You're gonna have expensive drawings one after another if you don't agree with it. I've done this.
I guess our
I'm telling you. that,
Our
you know,
goal, Wayne, is to really try to get as close to what will work for this group to then tear it apart and have another set, but they're never gonna get it right the first time around.
This is what I'm saying, Denise.
Right.
I'm saying the same thing you just repeated.
Yeah,
Why don't they come up with a basic idea? I mean, it's a flat thing, you know, come up with an idea. You know what a gym looks like, how big it should be. If they show you a gym, jeepers, you know, I mean, they're gonna draw you a whole thing up here now.
well,
And another question is, did you ever consider 2 stories? Is that in this plan at all?
we asked about that and it was not
Because you know,
doable,
2 stories covers 1 roof, because
right?
in 10 years, you're gonna be looking at repairing a roof.
Yeah,
So you can get double the exposure.
high school would not accommodate a second story.
Well, are you gonna renovate the school?
Yes, but it's still, for whatever reason, I don't
You don't
remember the
know.
reasons,
I
but
don't know, this is all
yeah.
what it, you know, context, but I think maybe that might be something to really think about too.
Well, we'll bring it up to them.
Huh?
Samantha's still on the call, so
Again,
she's taking note, I'm sure.
right, so you know, maybe you want to think about having them come up with a quick thing so you can look at it and say, whoa, yes, that's what we want. Perfect. Keep it up.
Okay,
You chew through that money quick.
we are. Yeah, it's expensive having those professionals drawing and
Just,
redrawing.
I sit here listening to this and it's painful for me because I've done it.
Painful for a lot of us.
Yeah, but I'm trying to give you some advice from experience.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you. Any other public that would have anything to comment, questions? We'll try to answer questions. Well, my favorite part of the meeting is coming up.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Jason, seconded? The 2 selectmen. Just saying.
I don't get to make motions much.
All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
So we're